other than people slowing down in front of me and people behind me riding my butt. Looks like a wonderful morning. And I got asked a question the other day that was a really good question. One of my friends, one of my viewers, asked me a question on the comment section, gave me an idea for a video, and so I figured I would make a video about what does maintenance cost me, like for my various bikes. So I figure I'll give you a baseline, and I always consider regular maintenance to be like how these KTMs are, okay? Now, the Duke 690, the Super Duke 1290, and the RC8, the maintenance on all three of those bikes is exactly the same as recommended by KTM, okay? And that is, when you buy the bike brand new, you ride it for 600 miles, and then you change the oil. Change the oil and filter, and that's your first break-in oil change. And then the next oil change that KTM recommends is at 6,600, which is 6,000 miles after that. And me personally, I change the oil in these KTMs every 3,000, not every 6,000. I change it like twice as much, you know? Like, so I do my first change at 600, and then I do my next one at 36, and then I do the one that they recommend at 66, and then I do another one at 96, and then I do the one that they recommend, or actually, okay, when it gets to 12.6 or like 13,000, okay, when it gets about 13,000 miles on it, that is what they consider the first major. And usually, like most people, the way they ride, your bike will be around 2 years old when it needs that, you know, it'll be about 2 years old, it'll have 13,000 miles. That's just like the average for how many miles like just average people ride, and it will need its first major tune-up. And what that is the brand new spark plugs and adjusting the valves, and at least checking the valves. You know, maybe they don't, like the ones on this Duke 690 didn't need adjusting, but it was good that the guy checked them and made sure that they were okay. And then they flush out the radiator and like all the coolant and put brand new coolant. And then they flush out the fluid in the front brakes, the rear brakes, and the clutch, since this is a hydraulic clutch, and they put all new fluid and all that stuff. And at that point, I also had them put a brand new chain on the Duke 690. And that's pretty much it. That's your first major. And that costs about like 600 bucks, you know, maybe 650 bucks. That's your first major. And then you just keep on going with the maintenance after that, you know, just like before, until you hit like double that, like 2,600 or 2,500, whatever. Then you do another major, you know, then you get the valves checked again, get brand new spark plugs again, flush the coolant again, you know, like all that stuff. So that is what I consider regular maintenance. I just figured I would tell you, you know, here's how much like an oil change costs, or a major tune-up costs, or whatever, you know. And on the different bikes, I'll start out with Grom. It holds basically a quart of oil, maybe even a little bit less than that, maybe 3/4 of a quart or a pint, whatever, same difference. And since I pay $20 for a pint of oil and then $8 for a filter, I would say it costs maybe about $25 to change the oil in the Grom. The Beta really doesn't cost too much more because, you know, it's got an $8 filter, but then it only holds maybe half of a quart, or like 0.6, you know, like not very much oil. And I have to get two different kinds of oil for it. It takes one kind of oil for the engine on the left side of the bike, and then it takes a different kind of oil for the transmission on the right side of the bike. And it's got two different drain plugs, and it's got two different fill plugs for those two different oils. So I pay $20 for each one of those quarts, but I'm only using 0.6 of each one of those quarts, and then a filter. So I would say for the Beta, it's maybe like $30, you know, maybe $31, you know, somewhere around there to do an oil change. And then for the Duke 690, it takes 2 quarts or pints, exactly like half a gallon of oil is what this thing takes. So that's $40. And then it takes 2 filters. It takes a little filter on one side and a little bit longer big filter on the other side. So for the Duke 690, I would say about $56. And then the Super Duke 1290 and the RC8 are both the same. It uses a full gallon of oil. It uses a full gallon of Motorex oil, which costs $70. Yeah, it's $20 a pint, so you would think it would be like $80. But when you buy the whole gallon jug, it's a little bit cheaper. They give you a discount on it, and it's only $70. And then you add in the filter that it uses, you know, like another $8. So I'd say it's about like $80. It's like an $80 oil change to do the RC8 or the Super Duke 1290. So that's, as far as maintenance goes, that's pretty much oil changes are what I think of as maintenance, just because that's what you're doing the most of on a motorcycle. And I did do the first major on this Duke 690. I took it to the dealership and had them do it, and that was $650. So it wouldn't surprise me if the RC8 and Super Duke are more like $700, maybe even $750. Because it might be like a little bit more time that they need to spend on those bikes, and for sure a little bit more money, because those bikes are V-twin. So that means they're going to be replacing 4 spark plugs instead of 2 spark plugs, because that's how KTM does it. They use 2 spark plugs per cylinder because it makes the engine more efficient. There's a lot of manufacturers are doing that nowadays because it actually makes more power, and you know, you get better mile per gallon. That would be the difference, I would think. You know, I mean, maybe the RC8 and the Super Duke would hold a little bit more coolant, but I would think that's pretty much, you know, like the cost of the chain and stuff like that is pretty, I would think pretty similar. And then I would think for the Beta 500, it would probably be a little bit cheaper to do the first major, you know, because it's only 1 spark plug, and it's way less coolant for sure. And you know, it's not going to be that big of a deal as far as like working on that bike. It's not near as much body work or plastics, fairings, whatever you want to say. Not as much stuff that they're taking off of the Beta in order to get to like the valve cover and all that stuff in order to check it. So, and then as far as the Grom goes, that's there's really no first major on that thing, because I do my own valve checks. You know, it's really easy. It's got 2 little tiny covers on the top of the head that you take off, and the rocker arm is underneath there. And it's really easy to do because you could do it with a feeler gauge, and it just takes like a little wrench and an Allen screw. You know, it doesn't take shims. It's not the kind of setup like the KTMs or the Beta where you've got to like take the cam out of there, you know, and like undo the timing chain and take the cam out and like, you know, swap out shims. It's not like that. It's just got little adjusters, you know, it's like old school style. And I don't know, let me know if there's anything else that you wanted me to cover as far as maintenance goes. I mean, that's, as far as cost of maintenance, that's what I could think of. And then I guess tires, you know, but I don't really consider tires to be maintenance. That's more just like cost of ownership or cost of riding a bike. So let me know what you guys think, you know, like what you consider regular maintenance, or what your bike is, and what your maintenance schedule is for that. And I will talk to you in the next video. Peace.